everyone! Today I am here with Trix to talk to you guys about whether or not hedgehogs make good pets, and this is only the second time Trix is ever in front of all of these bright lights all at once. So far so good. I discovered in her introduction video that if I use fleece from her cage, she does a little bit better than if she's in my hands. She feels a little bit more secure. So we're gonna hang out and talk about whether or not these little spiky dudes make good pets or not. So over the years, I have gotten a ton of questions from people asking whether or not hedgehogs make good pets, and I find it an incredibly difficult question to answer because I think it's really subjective. It's very personal to, you know, the individual, how you're going to handle certain animals. Now, I've made some videos where I talk about the pros and cons of hedgehogs. Essentially, I've made videos about the illnesses they're prone to and 10 things you should know before owning one. And I find that a lot of those videos do actually discourage people from getting hedgehogs sort of on a whim, because they do tend to be impulse buys very frequently, which is kind of surprising considering they're an animal that has literal, like, very obvious defense mechanism just like on their back. So I found that those videos, the longer they're up, I've gotten a lot of comments that have been like, oh, hedgehogs are clearly not the right pet for me. But I still get a lot of questions, even with those videos out, about whether or not they actually are good pets. Now, obviously I have owned, you know, enough hedgehogs to come to the conclusion that I enjoy them as a pet. I mean, a lot of my channel's content is focused on hedgehogs. I currently have one. I had 2 boys previously to Trix. I will probably get another hedgehog at some point. Maybe not while I own Trix, but like after she passes, or maybe before she passes, who knows? She's not that old. But for me personally, I find that hedgehogs do make good pets. However, I have several friends that have hedgehogs and they love their hedgehogs, but they'll never own hedgehogs again. So if you haven't seen my 10 things you should know before buying a hedgehog video, I recommend you watch that, because I do find that that is helpful for some people in deciding whether or not they want a hedgehog. But I also want to talk about some other things. So in this video, I wanted to discuss some of the things that people commonly rehome their hedgehogs for, as well as some of the reasons I love having hedgehogs. So one of the most common things that people rehome their hedgehogs for is these right here, these lovely quills and all of this action that you hear her doing right now. So hedgehogs are prey animals and they're fairly defensive at that. It takes them a really long time to bond with you, and these quills are not comfortable. They're not soft, they're not really like super flexible. If they poke you with them, it doesn't feel great, especially if they're poking you on purpose because they're upset or frightened. Trix does really well in certain settings, but she's not used to this sort of setup or this sort of environment. She's used to her playpen, she's used to snuggling. This is not something that she's entirely comfortable with, and the only way for her to get comfortable with it is for her to get used to it. However, until she does, she's sort of a little ball of hissing anger. And that doesn't mean she hates me. A lot of people think their hedgehogs hate them. That's not the case. That's not really how animals work. It really just means that she's pretty uncomfortable with the current situation, and I'm doing my best to make sure that she is comfortable. I found something that makes her relax a little bit more, something that smells like her, and she's fairly used to me at this point, so that makes it easier as well. Hedgehogs are also rehomed frequently because of how messy they are. Hedgehogs don't poop in pellets like hamsters or guinea pigs or rabbits. They poop in actual, like, soft feces. It's most comparable to like a human's poop or a dog's poop or a cat's poop. It's not liquidy, but it is soft. And they can be quite messy with it. They run in it, they walk all in it, sometimes they sleep in it. That can be a deal breaker for a lot of people, particularly because hedgehogs can be quite difficult to potty train. Some would even say impossible. I have never gotten a hedgehog to potty train. Some people have had luck. I'm not one of those people. I think if you can't handle having messy animals, hedgehogs are probably one of the worst pets that you could probably get. They also frequently get rehomed because people think they're allergic to them or actually are allergic to them. Hedgehogs can cause hedgie hives, which is a rash on your skin because of these quills. I have a whole video on hedgie hives, but essentially these quills get all kinds of very nasty things in them, and it is very irritating to your skin. I don't know if you can see that, but just her like slightly touching me, I'm starting to get a little bit of a rash. I can just wash it with soap and water and it'll be fine. Some people have more severe reactions than that, and that can be, you know, like an actual allergic reaction, but for the most part people think they're allergic when it's technically just a skin irritation. Whoever started like saying that hedgehogs are hypoallergenic is insane, because that's not true. People also frequently rehome hedgehogs because they don't have enough time for them. Hedgehogs, in order to become social, require a lot of hands-on attention. A lot of people give up. They assume that their hedgehogs are just naturally antisocial, and while that's partially true, you also only get from a hedgehog what you put into them, for the most part. Some hedgehogs are naturally incredibly outgoing, but most of them, you are only getting what you put into them. If you don't play with them 6 out of the 7 days of the week, they have no reason to trust you. They have no reason to want to be around you. You're not a safe place for them. And of course, one of the most common reasons that hedgehogs are rehomed is because they're impulse bought by people who don't understand them. So I would really recommend doing as much research as you possibly can. You really don't want to get a pet that you're scared of, allergic to, or can't stand cleaning up after. That's kind of a recipe for disaster, and that really means that you're not going to enjoy them as pets. Now, something I love about having hedgehogs that you might also love is that once they do finally trust you, they can be amazing pets. They're incredibly cute, which is never a reason to get a pet, but it is always an added bonus. Once they trust you, they can be incredibly sweet and incredibly inquisitive, and I've found between the ones that I've encountered, they all have their own individual personalities, and it's a lot of fun to get to know them, particularly because I enjoy a little bit of a challenge. I don't enjoy like an immense amount of challenges. Like if my animal had like severe behavioral issues, I would be concerned. However, hedgehogs, it's just a matter of time before they eventually trust you. And some have a very hard time coming around, but I found that most do eventually come around. Blaze took like a year. I've told that story on my channel before. He took like a year before he trusted me, and then when he did trust me, he was like my baby. Whereas Draco like trusted me pretty quickly and was just a derpy little dude who did the funniest things all the time. So I really appreciate and relate to their quirkiness. Also, once you get into a routine, I find that they're fairly simple animals to take care of. They do need socialized pretty much daily, but they are nothing like, for example, sugar gliders or rats who need like very serious social time with you. Trix is perfectly happy being put in a bonding bag and hanging out with me for a half hour while I do the dishes or whatever it may be, and I don't always have to constantly pay attention to her. Ultimately, she's not super playful, and therefore I don't have to, you know, set up a playpen for her every single day. While I do that, a lot of the time if I'm busy, she's a great animal for me because I can bond with her while still getting things done. Whereas if you take my rats, for example, I have to make sure I have time for them. I have to essentially schedule time in my day for them because it's so important for them to get out of their cage and for them to, you know, interact. Whereas with Trix and other hedgehogs, it is important for them to get out of their cage and interact, but you don't have to be nearly as hands-on with it. It's also helpful that if for whatever reason you cannot get your hedgehog out of their cage, they typically don't go stir crazy if you leave them alone for a day, which is great because my social animals are not like that. So I didn't write myself a ton of notes for this video because I felt like I really wanted to just have like an honest conversation with you guys about why I like hedgehogs and why some people don't like hedgehogs, and maybe it would help you guys come to the conclusion about whether or not they make good pets. So hopefully some of those points helped you guys decide, and I'd recommend watching my things to know before you get a hedgehog video because that one was much better structured. Hopefully this was helpful regardless. Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm a lonely, hard feline.
I take what's mine and I leave behind.